What is going on, all you Pokemon collecting maniacs out there? This is Ryan, the Pika Papa, and as you all know, I am a huge Warren Buffett fan. And while you can't compare stock market investing to Pokemon cards, it's totally different. But there are some really cool phrases and sayings that really are applicable in both spaces. And this is one of Warren's most famous quotes, and I'm going to say it right now. Be fearful when others are greedy, and greedy when others are fearful. And the fearful when others are greedy kind of takes me back. It wasn't that long ago. We're talking like 6 or 8 weeks ago when we had all kinds of Scarlet and Violet era illustration rare cards and even some special illustration cards that were up in the 30, 40, 50, 60. I mean, I think the Drowsy card from Scarlet and Violet base set got all the way up to $80 at one point, and we just kept saying, listen, the market's getting a little frothy, it's got to correct, it's going to happen. And then in February, we saw this pattern start to emerge, which we saw emerge in the middle of 2024, right before the 2024 market started to get soft. And we said, hey, we're going to follow this pattern. And the pattern continued to follow the same path. And then here we are right now. Now, I don't know where the bottom is. I'm not going to pretend to know where it is. I don't have a crystal ball. Trying to find the bottom or time the bottom, as far as I'm concerned, is a fool's errand. I will say in 2024, we saw 4 consecutive months of price declines before we finally started to see the prices go up again. And once they started to go up again, guess what? They went way higher than they were to begin with. But listen, what I'm going to say is this. I think we're going to have some awesome cards. I mean, I'm talking big name Pokemon from really big sets with some amazing artwork that we're going to have the opportunity to get at some much more approachable prices than we did, I don't know, say 6 weeks ago. Now, I don't know when the time to buy is. I don't know. Again, I have no idea when it's going to happen, but that's not what I spend my time focusing on. What I spend my time focusing on, as I've said a million times in the past, big name Pokemon, awesome artwork from big sets, and that's what I'm going after, especially when I can get them at a discount. And you're going to see a lot of cards in this video that are selling at a pretty good discount compared to where they were just a few short weeks ago. Now, I'll also say this, we're not just going to look at cards. We're going to include a couple other metrics as we go through this as well, because these metrics matter and they don't always get talked about. So we'll look at the cards, but we're also going to look at the gem rate. Like if you're not sure, the gem rate for the entire Scarlet and Violet era is significantly lower than the gem rate for these cards were in the Sword and Shield era. We're also going to look at pull rates. Pull rates matter, right? Pull rates is a good indicator of how many of these cards are actually going to be out there in the wild. So we're going to talk about a lot of things. We're going to do a bit of a deep dive, and we're going to have a ton of fun as we look at these cards that I think are approaching some really, really interesting price points. Now, as we get into this video, as I always have to say, I got a small channel here. If you're finding value in it, if you're having fun, hit that subscribe button or give us a thumbs up. We do fun stuff like this all the time, and those 2 small things go a long way in helping my small channel out. So with that out of the way, let's look at the very first card, and honestly, this is one of my favorite cards that is on the entire list. And this is the Latios card right here from Surging Spark. So this is the illustration rare. Obviously, the Latios is the number 2 card, right? That's the special illustration rare. But this card I really, really like. And one of the things that I want to call out early on about Surging Sparks is Surging Sparks has one of the worst pull rates in the entire Scarlet and Violet era. As we go through this video, I want you to pay attention to the pull rate. So the odds of pulling a particular illustration rare in Surging Sparks is 1 in every 300 packs. And as we go through this, as we look at the odds of pulling, say, special illustration rares in sets like 151, in sets like Obsidian Flames, the odds of pulling an illustration rare in Surging Sparks is worse than the odds of pulling a special illustration rare in those 2 sets that I just mentioned. So you have an awesome artwork card right here from a Pokemon that has proven in the past that, hey, Latios can go, it can be a big money card, right? And then you throw in the fact that Surging Sparks has an abysmal gem rate. So it has a 35.6% gem rate overall. That means that out of all the cards that have been sent to PSA for grading, and I want you to think about this, people don't just willy-nilly send cards to PSA for the most part. I would say the vast majority of people who are sending cards to PSA have a hope that they're going to get a PSA 10. So you would imagine that these are some of the best cards that are being sent to PSA for grading, and yet still, even with it being the best of the best, only 35.6% of all the cards from Surging Sparks that have been sent to PSA end up in a PSA 10 holder. So that's really important because in the long run, those PSA 10s have a tendency, because the population will be smaller, have a tendency to go up in value, which can also pull the raw card prices up. Now, This card right here, obviously Surging Sparks hasn't been out that long, but it is starting to get a couple months behind it. And if you look at the 6 months graph right here, this card is down 35.36% from where it was 6 months ago. Now that goes all the way back to October. Obviously Surging Sparks came out in November, so you got a little bit of some pre-sales in there. But think about it. And the other thing that I like about this graph here is it looks like it's starting to slowly work its way back up. We'll have to see, but you see it came down really, really hard. And then a couple weeks ago, it looks like it hit a little bit of a resistance, right? It's hitting a bit of a support line right there. People are starting to buy in. It was probably at the $30 range, and people said, hey, listen, I'm not going to let this card get below $30. It's a great steal at 30, so it's popped back up to 32, but this is the stuff I like to talk about. These are the things that I consider when I'm going through a bit of a market downturn like this. Amazing set in Surging Sparks, amazing Pokemon, amazing artwork, really bad pull rates, and really bad gem rates. These are cards that I think could have a really bright future in front of them from a price appreciation standpoint. Now, next card on the list, and I am in love with 151. Matter of fact, I think I'm going to do a specific video on 151. And this Blastoise card right here, again, look at the pull rates. What people don't realize is that 151 is a stunner of a set, but the pull rates were really good, which is one of the reasons everybody loves it. It was a ton of fun to rip. It kind of reminded me of Crown Zenith back in the day, right? Crown Zenith felt like every single box. It didn't matter if it had 3 packs in it. It didn't matter if it was the Sea and Sky box. It didn't matter if it was an ETB. It felt like everything was loaded with awesome cards, and 151 gave that same vibe. So the pull rate for this isn't that hard. It's 1 in every 225 packs. But again, look at the gem rate. 34.8%. Now, to give you some comparison from the Sword and Shield era, the set with the worst gem rate in the Sword and Shield era was Lost Origin, and that had a 50% gem rate. I think it was like 48.8%. So that was the very worst set. Most sets in the Sword and Shield era were in the 60% range. So when you think about that as a comparison, yes, there's going to be a lot of these cards out there, but again, finding those super mint copies and the PSA 10s, they're going to be harder and harder to find. So this card right here has been working its way down. I pulled this, it was down at $69. It got all the way up to close to $90. It is down 15.94% over the last 3 months. And unlike the Latios card that we just looked like, it appears that it's still coming down. So again, I don't try and time the bottom, but this is one of the cards where I would probably wait to see where it starts to find a little bit of a support line before I start to pull the trigger, because hey, I am going to try and buy it at the best possible price. But I guarantee you, I've talked about this card a lot. As 151 gets older and older, as these start to become harder and harder to find in the wild in terms of a sealed perspective, I do think this card's got a $100 plus tag on it sometime in the near future. Now, next card right here, and this might surprise you a little bit. So the Pokemon Center exclusive Eevee from Prismatic Evolutions. And the reason that I'm so excited about this card is from a price perspective, if you compare it to the 151 Pokemon Center exclusive Elite Trainer boxes. So the 151 Pokemon Center exclusive Elite Trainer boxes go for about $471 right now, call it $470. And that Snorlax card in there, goes for $175. So when you think about Prismatic ETBs right now, they're going for $336. Now, there just was a bit of a restock on the Pokemon Center. I'm not sure if anybody out there had the opportunity to get them, but they were restocked. It didn't last very long. Hopefully you got your hot hands on it, but they're going for $336, and the promo card is only going for $96. And when you look at the price difference between the Prismatic Evolutions Elite Trainer box and the 151 Elite Trainer box, and then you compare the difference in the promos cards, like there's a big divergence between those prices. And if I had to guess which one I think is going to be more popular in the long run, I don't know. I would just say Eevee, only because I think Eevee probably has a bit more fans out there. Eevee and Eeveelutions right now are absolutely going wild versus the Snorlax. So knowing that the Snorlax card has already gotten up to $175, I think this card easily has that in the tank, if not more in the near future. So I have a couple of these off at PSA right now, if I'm being completely honest. Hopefully they come back as a PSA 10, we shall see. But these are also ones that are very, very hard to get in PSA 10 holders. But I love this in sub $100 right now. Next card on the list is a card I've been a fan of for a very, very long time, and this is that Charizard Special Illustration Rare from Obsidian Flames. And again, look at the pull rates. Again, this is the best pull rate that we're going to look at in this entire video, and this is the Special Illustration Rare Charizard from Obsidian Flames. The odds of pulling this is 1 in every 216 packs. Again, the odds of pulling an illustration rare from Surging Sparks was 1 in 300, right? So we're talking about the odds of pulling this just aren't that hard. But The gem rate is what makes this card really special in my mind. It's got a sub 30% gem rate, which is as low as I have seen for any super modern set. It is at 29.5% overall gem rate for Obsidian Flame. So it's going to be really hard to get in that PSA 10 holder. And this card has bounced all over the place. I mean, you can see it was as high as $75, $76, $77, and it has just been working its way down. It is down 22%, coming in at $55. Now, you know, in the back of my mind, you just can't help it. If you lived through the era, you are unintentionally going to compare this, in my mind, to the Darkness Ablaze Charizard, right? It just kind of seems like it's got a lot of similarities. I do think the artwork on this one is better, but the Darkness Ablaze Charizard was a very easy pull comparatively. The difference is you could get that in a PSA 10. It's a dime a dozen. Like, I think the gem rate on that was close to 70%. So that's the advantage I think this has over, say, a Darkness Ablaze, you know, Charizard versus what we're seeing right here in Obsidian Flame. So again, these are the kind of numbers I look at behind the scenes, but getting close to that $50 mark, it would be really hard for me not to add another one. I probably have 3 or 4 of these in the collection right now, but if it gets near $50, again, we're getting on, it just seems like a steal for me at 50 bucks. But we'll have to see what the market gives us here in the recent weeks. Now, next card on the list, and this might surprise you, we've been talking about really big names, really high dollar cards, but I like this Chansey from Twilight Masquerade. Now, Twilight Masquerade has a much better gem rate. The overall set has a gem rate of 50.1%, and again, compare that to Sword and Shield, this would still be in the very bottom, but when you include this in the Scarlet and Violet era alone, this is one of the highest gem rates in the entire Scarlet and Violet era. Now, this card has a pretty good pull rate, again, 1 in every 272 packs. The thing I like about it is it's down sub $20 right now. I love these cards that have kind of a mashup of Pokemon on there, right? You got Psyduck, you got Snorlax, you got Chansey in there, you got a Pokeball chilling right there. Like, there's just a lot to like about it. I also think Twilight Masquerade is going to be a very popular set. So this is another one. I wouldn't necessarily say I'm pulling the trigger on it right now, but if it gets down near the $15 mark, I will be picking up multiple copies of this and hopefully trying to get some in PSA 10s. At the end of the day, that's always my goal. It doesn't work out that way. Like, obviously, we don't always buy cards and they translate into PSA 10s, but, you know, my goal would be to try and get 1 or 2 of these in PSA 10 holders if I can get the raw card at the $15 point, and then just kind of sit on them and see what Twilight Masquerade and Scarlet and Violet does over the next 3 to 5 years. But lots to love about this card, and again, there's far worse you can do with $15 than pick up this Chansey card if it happens to get that low. Next card on the list is a card I have talked about ad nauseum from Twilight Masquerade again, and this is the Eevee card. I'm a big fan of this. Now, when it got all the way up to the $100 mark, I was sitting here saying, listen, I don't $100 love it. Even when it was in the $80 range, I was like, I don't $80 love it, but it continues to work its way down. It's at $65. So again, we have a high gem rate in Twilight Masquerade. We have relatively good pull rates, but the thing that I thought was interesting about this card, and I'm always comparing raw card price to PSA 10 price, because if the difference isn't that great, I'm just gonna save a little bit longer and pick up a card in a PSA 10 holder. Like, why run the risk of buying it, sending it in, getting a 9, or buying it on eBay, getting it in, it's got some ding you didn't see or a scratch on the hollow or something like that. Don't even mess with it. So this one coming in at $190 in a PSA 10 holder, I'm gonna have to keep an eye on that. Obviously, with the higher gem rate and an easier pull rate, there are going to be a lot of these in PSA 10 holders, which could, in the long run, kind of hurt the ability for this card to grow in price. But I do think $190, again, I'm gonna sit on it, probably could get it lower. $190 are like the buy it nows right now, so I'm sure you could do some best offers or do an auction, probably get it in the $160, $170 range. So that's kind of what I'm thinking of. Again, when you look at the price, look at what's happened. Yes, it's down 31.19% over the last 3 months, but it's really starting to find support at that $65 mark. We see that happen a lot. We'll see cards like this which find these support lines, and then it'll hold the support line, then all of a sudden it'll just kind of shoot off like a rocket ship. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see this thing hold $65 for a while. It'll just be interesting to see what happens after that. Now, next card on the list, and I gotta be honest with you, you all know this is one of my favorite cards in the entire Scarlet and Violet era, bar none. I think this is one of the best Pikachu cards that we have had in recent memory. Pikachu and Charizard are always the #1 and #2 most graded and also most popular Pokemon. It's coming from Surging Sparks, which we already talked about, has a very low gem rate. And then look at the pull rate on this card. The odds of pulling this is 1 in every 960 packs. I'm just gonna round up and say 1 in every 1,000 packs. So you're talking about a very low gem rate, especially compared to all the other cards that we've talked about. Now, 3 short months ago, this was almost a $500 card. It was all the way up at 480 bucks. And I kept saying, if you go back and watch the video I did specifically on this card, I said, hey, listen, I love this card, but I'm sitting on the sidelines for a while. I'm going to wait till this thing comes back down. Now, we've had the rumors, you know, Pokemon Company came out and announced and said, hey, listen, they're going to reprint Surging Spark. So hopefully we're going to see a lot more of these out there in the wild, which will continue to drive the price down. But coming in at $339, you know, now it's starting to get kind of into my wheelhouse. And that's a lot of money for a single. So I'm not trying to say $300 is something everybody can go out there and spend, but when you think about the magnitude of the card, when you think about the gem rates and the pull rates and the quality of the set that it comes from and the fact that it's a Pikachu, you know, all of those things combined together get me to think that, hey, listen, that is starting to get to an approachable price point. You see it's starting to flatten out, right? It's starting to find a little bit of support, so we'll have to keep an eye on it. I shared transparently the other day, I did pick up one of these already. I bought it for $300. It is not a PSA 10. I knew it wasn't a PSA 10 when I picked it up. It's a solid PSA 9, but I love the card. My kids love the card, so for 300 bucks, I will spend that all day on it. So very, very happy to have it to the collection. And then the final card that we're going to talk about, we're coming all the way back to 151, and that's the Charizard. And it's down near $200. Okay, this was all the way up to $300 like a month and a half ago, and it is starting to come back down. And again, for all of the reasons that I said when we were talking about the Blastoise, yes, there's going to be a lot of them out there. Again, pull rates, 1 in every 225 packs. There's not going to be a lot in PSA 10 holders, only a 34.8% gem rate. But at the end of the day, and again, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do a whole video on 151. At the end of the day, think about 151 and just the popularity of it. People are going to want 151 cards far into the future. 151, there's going to be, because the sealed product is so high, I think there aren't going to be a lot of people ripping sealed anytime soon. Yes, there will be some ripping them over time, but I don't think people are going to be tearing into them left and right. I think the demand is always going to be there. And this awesome card coming in at $200. Now, if you remember, like 18 months ago, this was a $100 card, and it held the $100 line for a very, very long time. So you can get it right now for $205. Yes, it's, you know, double what it was that long ago, but you pay a high price for certainty, and you got to pay if you decide to sit on the sidelines for a long time. But I do think $200 is a very interesting price point. You see it's still continuing to come back down, so we'll just have to wait and see if the market supports it at 200. But if it breaks below 200, oh my gosh, I might have to back the Polka-Dollar truck up and pick several of them up. If it breaks below 200, I don't know what I'm going to do, because again, 151 Charizard, awesome card. It's just hard to beat in the sub $200 range. But that's it. Those are the cards that I'm kind of keeping an eye on right now. Again, I'll never tell you when to buy or when to sell or what to do, but I do think a lot of these cards are worth having a healthy conversation about right now. If you've made it to the end, if you find value in this and you had a good time along the way, hit the thumbs up or hit that subscribe button. Those two small things go a long way in helping me out. I really appreciate it. I hope you have an epic one, and I will talk to you soon. Thanks, everybody. Bye.